Welcome to the Spiritual Danger Close podcast. I'm your host, Latter-day Retainer. Before we begin, I want to forewarn you, if you hear any strange noises, jingling, small bells, those are my two very rambunctious cats. This podcast will primarily be the readings of my blogs from the Spiritual Danger Close blog. I realize that not everyone has time to sit down and read what is essentially 2 to 4 page paper. Many individuals have full schedules from work to school to errands to managing a home life. A podcast allows you to listen while you're going throughout your day. Personally, I have around 10 podcasts that I frequently listen to. Most of the time I'm in my car or on my motorcycle. Often when I'm tidying up my apartment, I have a podcast playing to make the time go by faster. I felt impressed to do a podcast after another individual recommended Anchor. I found the startup was super streamlined and very friendly. It took me about 10 minutes to mess around with all the settings. If you're looking for your new podcast to host, Anchor might be for you. For right now, there is no monetization on the channel. In the future, I'd like to provide advertisement from companies within the community. If you'd be interested in creating an advertisement, please reach out to me on Twitter. The expressed viewpoints are mine and not necessarily that of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. For every episode, there will be references, so please check out the blog for the full citation. Spiritual Danger Close. Introduction. Welcome to the Spiritual Danger Close blog podcast. Whether you found this via web links I posted across social media or you happened across it, I welcome you to the blog and podcast. You may be wondering what is the importance of the wording with the name. Whether or not this was a concern to you, I felt strongly that the naming of this blog would be important in laying out the foundations of the blog. There's a little bit to unravel from this 3-word title that is an amalgamation of the 3 words, spiritual plus danger close. Let us examine this by each word. After that, I hope you can see what I envision. Spiritual. A brief Google search can bring up numerous meanings as well as interpretations behind the word spiritual, according to Oxford Languages, no date. In the adjective form in English, the meaning spiritual has and can be non-material, minimalism, or inner self, psychic, superstitious, religious, the organized or not organized, sacred, the site or the experience, divine, holy, and non-secular. Yes, it can be in some cases. What is spiritual to you? Do you have spiritual experiences, and can you be spiritual, not religious, including the inverse, religious but not spiritual, to name a few? Oakes, 1985, noted, quote, "To be spiritually minded is to view and evaluate our experiences in terms of the enlarged perspective of eternity," end quote. Spiritual is the opposite of carnal. Things of the world are fleeting. We, by our very nature, are inclined to carnal, not spiritual. It takes work, determination, perseverance, etc. to be spiritual. For some, this comes naturally, and for others, it's like hearing a foreign language. You know the person spoke, but you lack the context. Spiritual is also the subjugation of the flesh, striving for something greater than the carnal. With that in mind, let us examine the next bit of the 3-word title. Danger Close. Unless you are in the military, heavy gaming nerd, or a know-it-all, you likely haven't heard of the term danger close. This is a military definition that references a particularly hopeless situation. To put it in context, let us examine it through an all-too-real scenario. You are a soldier deployed closely to an active combat area. Your team came across enemy combatants, and the battle that you have been engaged with is absolute hell on earth. Your team has a couple down. The ammunition is not enough for an engagement of this type. So as the team lead, you position yourself closer to the enemy. Your team is in desperate need of close air support, such as a fighter dropping bombs or a drone firing a rocket, etc. You know that due to your proximity of the enemy to your location, that if you call in this needed air support, you have the possibility of receiving friendly fire, when friendly forces, by accident, uses deadly force on other friendly forces. If you don't do anything, your team might not make it home. Or you know your team will not make it home. Letting the enemy go could endanger more lives. So, you call over the radio for danger close air support. While this is not common occurrence, it is a possibility in the realm of warfare. For those who have done this, from what they've described, a desire beyond themselves. The mission comes first, their lives are second. Failing to do what is necessary may endanger more lives. So for that moment, awaiting salvation beyond your ability, you keep fire support, keeping the enemy engaged on your current position. Abinadi's martyrdom. Now, with those two terms defined, clearly explained, what on earth could spiritual have to do with danger close? I'm glad you're thinking that, which is what is something I am pondered. Well, I can't be honest and say I understand the meaning or intent of it myself 100% of the way. My spiritual impressions on naming this blog are hard to describe, but the story that I recall and summarize what came to mind for the titling of, quote, Spiritual Danger Close. The Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ about the peoples of the Americas, taken from the abridgment of various records from several peoples. In one of the books, there is a wicked king, Noah, who has turned a holy office into a kingship, ruling with wickedness by encouraging sins, increasing taxation, etc. As was common occurrence in the Old Testament, the Lord called the prophet to bring the people into repentance or face the consequences. Enter now a man named Abinadi, who started prophesying to the King Noah and the people of King Noah. After a back and forth between Abinadi, King Noah, it came to Abinadi being told if he didn't stop preaching against the king, that he would be put to death. With the threat of death, Abinadi kept to his mission, telling King Noah, quote, Yea, and I will suffer even unto death, and I will not recall my words, and they shall stand as a testimony against you. End quote. Then eventually King Noah was pressured into executing Abinadi, who died a martyr's death by being burned alive for his words. There is a lot to unpack in this story, but what it serves and the purpose of this blog is the example idea of what spiritual danger close could be. Abinadi knew going in he would face the probability of death, but continued to exercise his faith, his spirituality in the face of adversity. Being secure in our spirituality, we too should, when in the face of adversity, or in other words, danger close, have the fortitude to stay the course, come what may. Am I saying we should become martyrs? Yes and no. I recall what Tsunemoto said, quote, If you think of taking on a disciple yourself, then you should practice diligently spirituality every day. End quote. Now, I hope to have explained some of my thoughts I have felt and my desire to write this blog, from my impressions to promptings I have received. Conclusion. What will spiritual danger close look like? It's hard to say, really, as I still need to ponder that. What I can say, it's going to be from the best books. I'll use some level of academia in referencing things throughout future posts, right now using a semi-American Psychological Association as a reference guide. As that is what I'm most familiar with, I'm not really a fan of subscripts for referencing. To be upfront on things which might not be obvious to some, I'm spiritually an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which this year marks 18 years in the faith. I have converted in my preteens of my own will and volition. I have been devoutly active to spiritually dry, rebellious, aloof from spirituality, and have returned now, but with greater passion. I had gone astray so far at one point I was on formal probation. The lessons I learned along the way haven't been immediate, but with some impressions, with introspectiveness, I have seen the value of my trials. Honestly, even though I'm not always honest, is something that matters to me. I will be straightforward, clear, and concise when it comes to my personal opinions, to the doctrine of the church. To start, I don't agree with everything all of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have faith to know that by following the prophet and letting God prevail, that it will all work out in the Lord's time. Inshallah. Based on my faithfulness to His commandments. If you are reading this, it's because you saw my posts elsewhere, and yes, I agree with some of the desert nationalism, but that's a post for another day. I don't really know all the content I'll push out or the frequency that this will occur. I will try to keep everything in line with the concept of the blog's desired name. I have some other blogs brewing, but right now, let this be guided by the Spirit and impressions as much as possible. When they are and are not, I can annotate such in the title. Until then, my friends, brothers, and sisters, may God be with you.